But something else that might have caught your eye over the past 24 hours or so is Ofsted. Teachers and parents have been reacting to this report into the school inspection system in England. The report found that Ofsted is toxic and no longer fit for purpose. I'll get reaction from an Oxfordshire parent and a head teacher in the county in a moment. But first, let's get more from BBC Radio Oxford's Joe Campbell, who sent us this report last night.
Good morning, how are you?
Former Dorset MP and Schools Minister Lord Jim Knight was doing the rounds, talking about his team's idea that Ofsted should be taken out of the classroom, overhauling the current inspection system.
Instead of having a snapshot, sort of name and shame judgment that creates a culture of fear, create trust by asking the leadership and the governance of the school groups, local authorities or multi-academy trusts to appoint a school improvement partner.
Instead, the team based here will keep watch over the support network for schools. They rejected the report's findings, saying children only get one chance at education, and inspection helps make sure that education standards are high for all children. The current inspection system was developed after extensive consultation with the education sector and parents. Lord Knight's work was already underway when Caversham Primary head Ruth Perry took her own life, following an inspection 12 months ago last week that downgraded her school from outstanding to inadequate.
Ruth Perry's shocking death has been a really important backdrop to our work. We'd already started, but that just changed the debate. And in some ways, it's opened up the possibility for us to advocate for significant change rather than just advocate for change itself.
Julia Waters, Ruth Perry's sister, has already had meetings with the Department for Education, lobbying for change. Professor Waters, who was here this afternoon for a meeting with the Labour Shadow Education team, has welcomed the recommendation that Ofsted should have a legal duty of care for those that it inspects. For now, though, Ofsted's future rests not with whoever forms the next government, but the current team of ministers here.
So that's our report from BBC Radio Oxford's Joe Campbell. But let's speak to some teachers and some parents. Lynn Knapp is head at Windmill Primary in Headington. Morning, Lynn.
Good morning, Sophie.
What do you think of Ofsted then? Does it work? Is it toxic, as the report says?
I think there are serious failings in how Ofsted works, and I think a lot of it is to do with the subjectivity of the particular inspector you get, about the fact that it is such a snapshot in quite a long period of time. So you might have a snapshot once in 5 years. Is that really giving a really good indicator of how good or bad a school is? So, I would agree that I would almost want more regular assessments, external assessments of how schools are doing, where someone comes in, works with the team, works with the head teacher to look at where things are going really well and where things need support and development. And then it becomes an ongoing self-improvement process, which is what we should all be about as schools. I agree entirely that children only get one crack at education and every school should be the very best it can be. But the way in which we go about doing that, I don't think is served through the Ofsted process as it stands at the moment.
But those regular, presumably for you, lower key, because, we all know how stressful it can be. And we've heard from teachers before about that stress when you think they're coming. Is that thorough enough? Is that tough enough when it's needed for schools that are struggling?
I think it definitely can be, because I think then you've got somebody there who can actually support a school in moving forward. And no school wants to be struggling, but at the same time, you have to acknowledge that there are times when schools go through challenging times. Maybe their head teacher leaves and they've got no significant leader and they can't appoint you. There are times when you need somebody else to be in the school supporting, not coming in to force a judgment on a school, which can then actually knock away, the entire confidence of that leader. And then on top of that, you get things, there are things in school that we do for Ofsted. Is that right? We should be doing things, everything we do should be about the children and about learning and teaching, not to tick boxes that we think Ofsted are going to expect to see.
It's interesting to talk to you, Lynn. And how much do parents care about it as well? That's also what we're asking this morning. How much did it affect how you chose your school, how your sons and daughters chose their schools for the grandchildren? Chris Bradbury is from Aynhoe. He's a father of 6 children, starting at 13 days old and going up to 12. Congratulations, Chris. You got a very new one there.
Thank you very much. Yeah, a little bit of sleep deprivation this morning, but otherwise...
You're an old hand at this now. You know what you're doing, hopefully, with number 6. So, you've had the full gamut from infant and primary through to secondary. How much do you care about? How much do you take into account the way Ofsted's rated the school?
For us and our family, Ofsted is fundamental to the decision-making process when it comes to school selection, and it's the same at primary as it now is at secondary. I mean, we even chose the house and the village that we lived in based on trying to find a school with a good Ofsted report.
Wow.
And the house prices in our village, I think, and the demand for properties there are very much based by the fact, impacted by the fact that we have a really good school. So it's really, really important to us. But at the same time, I have an awful lot of sympathy for teachers who have to go through that sort of Ofsted process. It's a challenging one. We work closely as parents, obviously, with the teaching staff at the schools that our children are at, and we see firsthand the impact and pressure that Ofsted sort of causes and then sort of has.
Do you think enough parents understand, though? You see excellent or outstanding or good. Do you think enough people understand that could be 7, 8, 9 years old, that ruling and that judgment, and things can change a lot in that time?
No, I don't think people do. And I think where Ofsted does do a particularly poor job is the communication of that data. I mean, for parents, Ofsted should be a tool where we can have access to the reports, the data, and also to be able to easily make comparisons between the schools in the area and understand the date and length of time that the data has been collected over. That transparency is very much missing. But I will also say that the one thing that I do think we get from Ofsted is fairness, sort of impartiality, and it's sort of uninfluenced by external parties. And I think based on the report, we would lose some of that if we brought it down to local authorities and local areas and local school monitoring, where they're obviously very self-interested in being able to get a good report for the area. I think Ofsted sort of guards against that.
Interesting to talk to you, Chris, and good luck with the new one. What's the youngest baby's name?
Amelia.
Amelia. Oh, welcome into the world, Amelia. I hope you're doing all right. Lynn, I know you're still there. I mean, do you think schools themselves are that, if you've got an outstanding and it is sort of 6 or 7 years old, do you think enough schools are saying, P.S., it was quite a long time ago that do you think enough are honest about that or clear about it?
I'd like to think so. I mean, I always say that if parents are coming round, I always say, look, this is 2015, we've got our outstanding. And actually the criteria have changed apart from anything else. The guidance that we were judged under in 2015 is very different to what we're judged under now. So that I don't think is clear to people either. And I have no doubt that, our outstanding judgment that we have that goes on our website is one indicator of the fact we are full. Because I think people do use that as a way of judging schools. And I'd like to think that we continue to improve and that we are still outstanding. But that's not a guarantee for schools. If leadership changes and things change, schools can go through dips and dives.
Yeah, it's really interesting to talk to you about it, Lynn. Thank you. And I would love to know what you feel as well. I mean, did you know that once a school gets an outstanding rating, Ofsted don't come back for sometimes a very long time. So that might be quite an old judgment, an old grading. You can let me know. 81333 is my text number. Starting your message, the word Oxford. Ofsted itself says inspections are needed to ensure a high quality education. They say children only get one chance at it. So inspections help make sure that education standards are high for all.
Sophie Law. BBC Radio Oxford.
Ofsted is toxic and no longer fit for purpose. It's the finding of a new report into our schools inspection system by a former schools minister and the National Education Union. The inquiry's calling for an end to single-word judgments like outstanding or inadequate, saying they're too simplistic to describe a whole school. Head teacher at Windmill Primary in Headington, Lynn Knapp, says there are serious failings in the way Ofsted works.
You might have a snapshot once in 5 years. Is that really giving a really good indicator of how good or bad a school is? There are things in school that we do for Ofsted. Is that right? Everything we do should be about the children and about learning and teaching, not to tick boxes that we think Ofsted are going to expect to see.